It was a few years ago. I was on a work trip and had to stay at the Red Lantern Motel. I pulled in late at night, tired and craving sleep. The place looked run down. The paint was peeling, and the neon sign flickered like a dying bug. The parking lot was almost empty, which felt strange, but I didn't think much of it. The first night was quiet. I settled in, called home briefly, and turned in. I slept well. But on my second night, I heard it. There was a muffled tapping coming from the wall beside me. At first, I thought it was just the plumbing. I was exhausted from driving all day. I tried to ignore it, but the tapping continued, odd bursts that kept me awake. By the third night, the tapping changed. It turned into whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt wrong, cold, and sharp against my ears. I decided to peek out the window. That's when I saw a shadow moving behind the curtain of the next room. My heart started racing. I didn't know why I didn't call the front desk or just leave. I kept hearing the whispers, then I saw her. A woman stood there, staring blankly at the wall. Her dark hair hung in front of her face. I blinked, and when I looked again, she was gone. I was shaken but convinced it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. Still, I felt uneasy. The next time I heard the tapping, it was louder, almost frantic. I was sweating. I thought about leaving, but the conference was important. I couldn't lose my reservation. I kept telling myself it was just the motel's quirks, that I was imagining things. The final night was the worst. I woke up to heavy breathing, low and raspy. I glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m. I felt paralyzed. Then I mustered the courage to get up. I knocked on the adjacent door. I waited for a reply but got nothing. My heart raced, and I thought it could explode. Stepping back, I heard it again. "Why are you here?" A voice whispered from behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. I felt cold all over. The only sound was the buzz of the neon sign outside. I didn't know what to do. I figured it was all in my head, but I still couldn't shake the feeling. The next morning, I checked out fast. I couldn't wait to leave that place. I still think about what happened. Did I share my space with someone or something I didn't understand? Was the woman real? Or was the fatigue getting to me? My mind races with those questions. I wish I had answers. I didn't want to think about the Red Lantern Motel anymore. After checking out, I drove away quickly, trying to shake off the memories. I turned on the radio, but the static was deafening, filling my head with unwanted thoughts. I craved comfort. So, I decided to stop for coffee at the nearest diner. As I entered the diner, the familiar smell of brewed coffee wafted through the air. I spotted a booth near the back and sat down. A waitress approached with a smile. "What can I get you?" "Just a coffee, please," I said, trying to appear normal. She nodded and walked away. I couldn't ignore it. The whispers from the motel were still echoing in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My instincts urged me to look around. That's when I saw her. The woman from the motel was standing by the front door. She was exactly the same, dark hair partially covering her face, looking lost. My blood ran cold. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was imagining things. But no, she was still there. "Excuse me," I called out, overly curious, but she didn't turn. Instead, she stepped outside and disappeared into the parking lot. I glanced at my waitress, who returned with my coffee. "Did you see that woman?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked puzzled. "What woman?" My heart sank. I was sure I had seen her. Maybe I was going crazy. I took a quick sip of coffee, hoping it could help me think straight. It burned my tongue, but it didn't matter. I got up and left a few bills on the table, then headed outside. Looking around, I searched for her, but she was gone. It was like she melted into the shadows. The hairs on my neck stood up. My instincts kicked in, urging me to leave. I walked back to my car, suddenly anxious to put distance between me and that diner. I hopped in and started the engine. My hands trembled. I took a moment to catch my breath. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I felt a strange compulsion to look in the rearview mirror. And when I did, my stomach dropped. There she was, standing at the edge of the diner parking lot, staring right at me. But all I could see was her face, and it was twisted in a way that made my skin crawl. The moment felt frozen in time, and fear gripped me. I sped away, the image burned into my memory. I needed answers. Why did she look for me? What was this connection? Driving away from that small town, one thing became clear: the whispers hadn't stopped. They were more alive than ever, echoing louder in my mind as I faced the unknown ahead. I should have left it all behind, but that wouldn't be the end. No, this was only the beginning. I drove for miles, trying to summon the courage to think clearly. The woman's face haunted me, twisted and unreadable. Why was she connected to me? What could she want? I half-heartedly considered calling the police, but I quickly dismissed it. I couldn't explain this to anyone without sounding insane. Eventually, I pulled into a gas station. It was the only place nearby that looked open. I needed to stretch my legs, maybe buy a snack. The late afternoon light cast long shadows as I stepped inside. A few customers moved about, but none paid me any mind. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, almost drowning out my thoughts. As I poured a cup of coffee, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the store window. I looked tired, maybe even a little unhinged. I shook my head, telling myself to snap out of it. The last thing I needed was to succumb to my imagination. Just when I thought I could get some normalcy back, I heard a familiar voice. "Do you have any idea what you're looking for?" I turned and found a man standing behind me, wearing an old, tattered jacket. His eyes gleamed with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Excuse me?" I replied, unsure how to take his tone. "You scared her away," he said, tilting his head slightly, as if trying to gauge my reaction. "She thought you could help her, but you ran." A chill zipped up my spine. "What do you mean? Who are you talking about?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The woman from the motel." She's been suddenly, a loud clatter interrupted us. The shelves next to us rattled as some cans fell to the floor. People jumped, startled, and the moment of tension broke. The man took a quick step back, looking nervous. "Maybe another time," he said quietly and turned to leave. Just before he reached the exit, he glanced back at me. "Watch out for the whispers." The door swung shut behind him, and I felt the weight of his words sink in. What did he know? I hurried to pay for my coffee and half-heartedly grabbed a bag of chips, feeling my heart race. The woman was still in my mind, but now so was this mysterious man and his warning. I got back to my car, still processing what had happened. Just as I was about to drive off, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have left her. She needs you." I froze, gripping the steering wheel. Who sent this? The world felt like it was closing in around me. My skin prickled with anxiety. I had to figure out what was going on, but it was becoming increasingly dangerous. Just then, a figure moved through the parking lot, and my heart sank. It was the woman again, approaching my car slowly. I barely had time to react. The moment I saw her, everything else faded away. I couldn't let this happen again. I slammed the car into gear and sped off, leaving her behind. But as I looked in the rearview mirror, she was still there, standing still in the lot, her face shrouded in shadows. The whispers were getting louder. There was no escaping them now. Whatever was going on, it was only going to get worse. And I was determined to find out why. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind tangled in knots. The woman from the motel and the man from the gas station clung to my thoughts like moths to a flame. I had to find a way to shake this off. My instinct urged me to go back, confront whatever was happening, but fear paralyzed me. As darkness crept in, I found myself on a lonely stretch of road. The headlights illuminated a few scattered trees, but the emptiness gnawed at me. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, pulling me from my thoughts. Another message: "You can't hide forever. She'll keep looking for you." I pulled over to the side of the road, heart racing. I scanned the area, half expecting shadows to shift and reveal some hidden figure. Nothing. Just me and the sound of the engine idling. I clenched my phone, debating whether to respond. Instead, I set it down and took a deep breath, willing myself to calm down. I drove again, deciding to head back toward the motel. It felt reckless, but staying away felt worse. The further I got from that point, the stronger the urge became to turn around. I needed answers. As I approached the motel, I felt a mix of dread and determination. The neon sign flickered in the distance, almost as if it was beckoning me back. I parked under the shadow of an old tree and sat still for a moment, glancing out at the familiar building. The motel looked the same, run-down yet eerily inviting in the dark. I stepped out of my car, the crunch of gravel underfoot loud in the quiet night. My breath felt heavy as I approached the front desk. I half expected the receptionist to greet me with a knowing look. "Back again?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. Yes. I need to talk about the room I stayed in. Has anyone checked in after me?" I felt foolish asking, but I needed to know. He glanced up, a hint of curiosity crossing his face. "No one, actually. It's been empty. Kind of strange, isn't it?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Strange how?" "Just that it was such a mess when you left. Usually, folks clean up. But that room? Looked like a tornado hit it. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head." "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "I dunno. Just weirdness, you know. Maybe whoever was in there before you just left in a hurry." I wanted to ask more, but the urge to leave intensified. Just then, I saw a flickering light from the direction of my old room. It danced from inside, as if someone was moving around. My heart raced. I turned to the receptionist. "Do you have a key to that room?" He stared at me with a raised eyebrow. "You really want to go in there?" "Yes," I said firmly. Just then, I caught a movement in the window. "Fine." He handed me the key, a reluctant look in his eyes. As I made my way toward the room, every instinct screamed to turn back. But curiosity pushed me forward. I had to know what was happening. When I reached the door, my heart thumped loudly in my chest. I paused, hand hovering over the doorknob, doubts flooding in. What if I wasn't prepared for what I would find inside? Then, as I turned the knob slowly, the door creaked open. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable whispers, echoing around me, growing louder. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me. Inside the room, darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. The whispers were louder now, swirling and merging into a murmur that sent chills down my spine. I fumbled for my phone, the screen casting a pale light, revealing the disarray in the small space. The bed was unmade, sheets crumpled, but what caught my attention was the mirror. The surface, dusty and cracked, reflected more than just the room. It shifted slightly, as if something was moving behind it. I took a cautious step closer. The whispers seemed to crescendo, like a warning, urging me to back away. I should have listened. I breathed deeply, trying to steady my racing heart. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the tense silence. No answer. Just that haunting whispering. I turned my attention back to the floor, where a random pile of clothes lay discarded. The fabric looked familiar. My gut twisted as I recognized a shirt I had thought lost, not just any shirt, but the one I wore the day I checked in. How did it end up here? I hadn't even looked for it since I left. I bent down, reaching for it, but as I touched the fabric, a sharp cold shot through my fingertips. The air thickened, wrapping around me like a tightening noose. I yanked my hand back, heart racing, but it was too late. The whispers now turned into frantic voices, each one distinct but all overlapping. Leave. Help us. Don't stay. I stumbled back against the door, half expecting it to rattle in response to my panic. My mind whirled. There had to be a rational explanation for this madness. I glanced around, searching for anything else that might make sense. On the bedside table lay a notebook, old, tattered. Curiosity tugged me toward it. Hesitating, I swept my hand over the cover, and the whispers quieted, as if acknowledging my intention. I flipped it open to an entry dated back months ago. It detailed strange experiences of other guests, odd sounds, sightings of figures in the reflection, a sense of being watched. Then I caught a chilling mention, the Watcher. Each entry ended with a plea for anyone reading to leave immediately. My breath quickened again. What had I stumbled into? I forced myself to read on, feeling a pull deeper into its pages when a sudden noise made me jump. A thud came from the bathroom, cutting through the unease I felt. Hello? I called out again, voice wavering. I waited for a response, but nothing came. Then everything went silent. Too silent that my heart thundered in my ears as I turned slowly toward the bathroom door, my hand gripping the edge of the table for support. I felt a strange pull, an inexplicable urge to open the door. Just as I took a step forward, I saw it, a shadowed figure dart past the cracked mirror, its movement too quick to confirm anything. But I knew I wasn't alone anymore. My instincts screamed that this was no longer just a mere fright. Panic surged. I whipped toward the door, only to realize it was locked tight. I was trapped. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder and more chaotic than ever. I had to act fast. I had to escape. Just then, the bathroom door began to creak open, and I braced myself for what would come next. The bathroom door creaked wider, revealing nothing but shadows. My instinct was to bolt, but the tight lock held me in place. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, a desperate attempt to shut out the chaos of that room. Please, just go away, I whispered, but the words hung in the air, unanswered. A slow, dragging sound emerged from the bathroom, like nails scraping against the tiled floor. I gripped my phone tighter, the glow illuminating the sea of darkness around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes were tracing every movement. Torn between terror and curiosity, I edged closer to the bathroom door. The air grew colder, practically icy. With one hand bracing against the door frame, I leaned in to peer inside. As I did, the whispers intensified, swirling fiercely around me, buzzing like angry wasps. When I saw it, a figure lurking just beyond the threshold. It didn't fully materialize, it felt more like a silhouette melded into darkness. A flash of movement caught my eye, and I saw a hand, thin and twisted, reaching out towards me. My heart halted. Instinct took over. I turned and ran to the window, pushing it with all my strength. The pane rattled but refused to budge. I glanced back, my breath hitching as the figure stepped further into the light. Features emerged from the shadows, sunken eyes staring unblinkingly at me. Panic clawed at my insides. Let me out! I shouted, desperation pouring from my voice. But the figure remained silent, its hand extending ever closer. I backed away, scrambling for the exit. I could feel the whispers cluster around me again, murmuring in a language I could not understand. They swirled like smoke, growing thicker and more oppressive. I lunged for the door, my fist pounding against it. Open! Come on, open! I pleaded. The surface felt solid, unyielding. I banged harder, adrenaline coursing through me, drowning out the fears that gripped my mind. Just when I thought I might lose it, the door rattled. I fell back, shocked, and watched as a shadow passed quickly by the mirror again, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Then I heard a soft, plaintive moan from the bathroom, and it chilled me to my core. Help us! That voice was different from the others. It sounded almost human. But what did that mean? Who were they? I took a daring step back towards the bathroom, curiosity battling against fear. The whispers quieted again. All I could hear was my breath and the soft call from the shadows. Help us! I had no idea what I was getting into, but I couldn't ignore it. I might be the only one willing to confront whatever lurked in this place. As I took a slow step forward, only to hear a loud bang from behind me. The locked door. I turned just in time to see it fling open wide at last. Just as I thought I was free, a chill ran down my spine. Someone was standing there. I froze, staring at the figure silhouetted in the doorway. The dim light from the hallway cast long shadows, making it impossible to decipher any details. My heart raced, thump thump, thump thump, a complete riot inside my chest. Who are you? I managed to choke out, feeling my voice tremble. The figure shifted slightly, almost as if it were contemplating its next move. You shouldn't be here, it said, the voice rough and low, lacking any warmth. What do you mean? Panic rose in my throat, and I glanced back towards the bathroom, the whispers turning into a soft, persistent hum. I didn't. There are things in this place, things you don't want to know. It stepped closer, and my instincts screamed for me to run. But I was pinned in place, unable to look away from its piercing eyes, red-rimmed and haunting. Things? Souls, the figure replied, its voice barely above a whisper. Lost. Trapped. A chill gripped my spine, and I remembered the moan from the bathroom. Help us! Why would I help? I can help you ruin it, if you let me. The figure's gesture toward the bathroom felt inviting, almost desperate. What do you mean by ruin? I asked, unsure if curiosity was safer than fear. The figure looked back at the bathroom doors, the air thickening with tension. You need to understand what happened here. To unlock their freedom. Suddenly, the whispers surged again, louder this time, swirling around me and digging under my skin. They felt almost like hands brushing against me, urging me to remember something, to reveal something hidden. I gripped my phone tighter, the light flickering against the abrupt chill in the air. I don't want to be part of this. I shouted, trying to step back, but I felt the door frame dig into my sides. The figure advanced, its presence looming larger as I felt the walls close in. Then they will take you too, it warned, voice low and grave. You need to be ready. Ready for what? Before it could answer, a loud crash of glass shattered my concentration. It came from the bathroom. A mirror, or perhaps the glass of the shower door. All at once, dread washed over me. The figure turned sharply back towards the bathroom. You have to choose. Now. Choose. I hadn't signed up for any choices. My heart pounded harder. I could either run away from it all or confront whatever had started to tear this place apart. The whispers grew frantic, each one weaving an urgency I could hardly ignore. I felt the pull of their desperation in my bones. But just as quickly as it all built up, the figure's presence faltered. It seemed to ripple like smoke, blurring at the edges. Hurry! It pressed one last time before it faded into the shadows. I was left standing alone, every instinct screaming at me to get out. But the bathroom loomed ahead, the chaos within beckoning to me. I couldn't think straight. I had to make a decision. But then a new voice came from within the bathroom. Help us. Please. I was stuck between two terrifying choices. What if I made the wrong one? Without thinking, I took a step toward the bathroom. I had to know what was happening behind that door. The whispers thickened, almost drowning out my thoughts. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle, its cold metal biting into my skin. I pushed the door open slowly. The hinges groaned, and I was met with a darkness that felt heavy and unnatural. Shadows danced in the corners, and the air was thick with a dampness that made it hard to breathe. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice wavering. "Help us." The voice from before echoed again, sounding more desperate, more pleading. It slipped through the cracks of the darkness, wrapping around me. I felt the urge to run, but something anchored my feet to the floor. Stepping inside, I flicked my phone's light toward the source of the voice. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating fragments of shattered glass strewn across the floor. A shattered mirror lay in pieces, reflecting glimmers of my own frightened face. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, suddenly furious at whatever had entangled me in this mess. No immediate answer came, but the air thickened, swirling, almost palpable with energy. It felt like something was watching me, lurking just beyond the shadows. I stepped further into the room, and that's when I noticed a figure crouched low, almost hidden behind the edge of the bathtub. "Please help us," its raspy voice begged again. My pulse raced. "Who are you?" I stammered. The figure emerged slightly, its features blurred and distorted. I couldn't shake the gut feeling that it didn't want to be seen. Suddenly, a rush of air filled the room, swirling around me like angry spirits. "You have to understand," the figure urged, trembling. "You're in danger." "Danger?" My mind reeled. "What do you mean?" "From what?" "From them." Its finger pointed toward the shattered mirror. With shaking hands, I aimed my phone's light at the fragments. In the reflection, I saw shadows swirling, angry whispers becoming a cacophony of screams. Panic surged within me. This wasn't just glass, it was a portal. Then, the figure lunged forward, arms outstretched. "You need to break the curse," it cried. Just then, the mirror shards began to vibrate, jolting me back. Everything in me screamed to run, but I felt rooted to the ground. "What curse?" I demanded, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice, but before it could answer, the air shifted. A cold wind slammed the bathroom door shut behind me, plunging me into darkness. The light from my phone flickered chaotically, casting eerie shapes against the walls. The figure's face twisted in terror, and before I could process it, it vanished into the shadows, its cries fading away. My heart pounded in my ears as I stumbled back, my breath quickening. I was trapped, enveloped by whispers and shadows, with no way out. "I have to break the curse," I whispered to myself, frantically thinking of an escape. My fingers brushed against a jagged piece of glass on the floor. That's when everything went dark. The whispers morphed into an anguished wail, and I lost my footing, tumbling into the void. I didn't know what would happen next, but I could feel all eyes on me, waiting, watching, wanting. I had to make a choice. Either confront the curse or be consumed by it. I hit the ground hard, the breath knocked out of me. My surroundings melted away into a bottomless black, and the whispers reached a fever pitch. I was dizzy, my heart thrumming wildly against my ribs. I struggled to stand, but the murky shadows embraced me, their cold tendrils gripping my limbs. "Make it stop," I shouted, my voice faltering in the void. But my words were swallowed by the cacophony, leaving only an echo of my fear. Suddenly, it felt like I was being pulled downward or maybe sideways through the darkness. Then, with a jolt, I was unceremoniously thrown onto a rough floor. I blinked, trying to make sense of the sudden shift. Dim light bled into my vision, illuminating a new environment. I was in a small room, bare except for a single light bulb hanging above, casting weak rays that barely reached the corners. The walls were painted an unsettling shade of beige, and the surrounding air was thick and stale. I searched for any sign of escape, but there were no windows, just a door bolted shut. My thoughts were interrupted by a repetitive scratching sound coming from the far corner of the room. I turned, every nerve alight with trepidation. I edged closer to see what was there, my heart hammering in my chest. As I approached, I could see it clearly, an old, battered suitcase. The scratching noise persisted. "Hello?" I called out cautiously. No response, just the relentless scraping, like claws against worn fabric. That I knelt beside the suitcase and reached for the zipper. It felt like opening a portal to another world, and I hesitated. What if the shadows were waiting for me? But curiosity burned beneath the fear. I undid the latch and gently pulled it open. Inside lay a collection of worn clothes and something else, a small object wrapped in cloth. My hands shook as I carefully unwrapped it. An old, tarnished key. My breath hitched. What could it unlock? The scratching stopped, replaced by a whispering I recognized all too well. "Help us!" It was the same haunting plea from the figure in the bathroom. My skin prickled. "Where are you?" I asked, scanning the room, searching for something more. Ignoring the growing dread, I picked up the key, letting it lay heavy in my palm. My instincts screamed that it was important. I stood, glancing back at the door. What if the key was meant for it? I walked to the door, the whispers growing louder. "Turn the key." Just like before, the plea rang in my mind, pushing me forward. I slid the key into the lock, resisting the urge to run. The metal clicked, and the door creaked open. What I saw on the other side froze me in place. A hallway stretched infinitely, lined with doors. Each one beckoned with an air of mystery, but each was just as unsettling. I didn't know where I was or even if it was safe to step out. Before I could make a decision, I heard footsteps echoing down the hallway, slow, deliberate, and getting closer. I turned back, panic rising. The key slipped from my grasp, clattering onto the floor. Then I saw its shadows melded together, creeping along the walls. My choice had been made for me. Retreat was no longer an option. I pushed through the doorway, heart racing, and prepared to face whatever lurked in the dark. I bolted down the hallway, each step echoing, reverberating off the stale walls. Shadows danced around me, teasing at the corners of my sight, whispering phrases that I couldn't quite catch. Panic surged through my veins. I couldn't stop, not now. Whatever chased me in the dark was closing in. I sprinted past the doors, each one a potential trap. My mind raced to recall the figure in the bathroom and its warnings about what awaited me. "Things you don't want to know," it had said. I had to find something, anything, that might help me escape this nightmare. Finally, I came across a door slightly ajar, a flicker of light escaping its edge. My instincts screamed at me to keep going, but the whispers grew louder and more urgent, intertwining with my thoughts. "Help us," they called, echoing the plea from before. I hesitated only a heartbeat before flinging the door wide and stepping inside. The room was dimly lit but furnished, an old table covered in dark cloth and chairs pushed in roughly. At the center of the table lay a dusty book, its leather cover cracked, ancient runes etched deeply into its binding. The atmosphere thickened, and doubt flickered in my mind. Should I open it? I wanted to flee, but I felt the binding pull me closer. I approached cautiously and flipped the cover open. A chill washed over me as I scanned the pages filled with disjointed entries, writings from past occupants of this oppressive motel, detailing their brushes with something dark, a spirit, a curse. I ran my fingers over the inked words, searching for something that would guide me through this chaos. Then, something caught my attention. A single passage addressed the watcher, a dark presence rumored to trap souls within these walls, feeding off their fears. My heart dropped. This was no ordinary motel. This was a prison built on despair. The key ID found a way to unlock the connection between the trapped souls and the oppressive force that held them. Suddenly, I heard it, footsteps echoing outside the door, accompanied by a low, chilling laugh. It almost sounded familiar. I was out of time. I needed to act. I had to confront this entity or become just another lost soul in its grasp. With trembling hands, I thumbed through the pages until I found a spell, a sort of incantation to disrupt the curse and break free of its bounds. I didn't understand all the words, but the urgency pressed me forward. I had to try. No. No. The whispers warned as I began to read them aloud, each syllable reverberating through the room like a shockwave. The door creaked ominously as the presence behind it stirred. I could see a shadow shift, pooling at the threshold. The whispers suddenly crescendoed, pleading, protesting. You shouldn't have come back. Don't release them. Fear clawed at my throat. I drowned it out, pouring my essence into the chant. I break this chain. I release, but the door flew open, and I froze. There stood a figure cloaked in darkness, its face a void. Dread seeped into my bones as the air grew heavy, smothering me with its weight. You've made a grave mistake, it hissed, voice like cracked glass. A wave of power emanated from it, clashing against my incantation. I won't cower. I won't. Suddenly, the shadows lunged at me, wrapping around my wrists like iron shackles, pulling, dragging toward the abyss. I gasped for breath as the figure stepped closer, twisting its hand. The book flew from my grip, landing with a sickly thud, just as I felt the darkness begin to consume me. It was like a light flickered within a thought rooted in my core. With a surge of determination, I pulled against the binding shadows, focusing on the whispers. The cries I had heard were not just for themselves, they were for me too, for any chance at survival. Let me go. I screamed, channeling every ounce of will. The room shook violently, and with one last breath, I shouted the words carved into my memory. My voice collided with the darkness, forcing it to flinch. For a moment, there was silence, then came the eruption, a soundless thunder, and I felt something shift. A light burst from the pages of the book, illuminating the room like a shattering dawn. The shadows recoiled with a scream that echoed off the walls, a cacophony of despair mingling with newfound strength. I charged forward into the blinding light, battling against the pull of the darkness, praying for release. Help us. The voices intertwined with my own, merging and building to a climax as the darkness shrieked and screamed. Finally, the shadows splintered, dissolving into thick strands of smoke, until the room around me consumed itself in brilliant light. And then, there was nothing. I found myself sprawled on the floor of the motel room, panting, the whispers eerily silent. I slowly pushed myself up. The air was clean, and I felt alive. Maybe I had broken something. Maybe I had freed those who were trapped. Or perhaps it was a fleeting victory, and the true entity still remained within these walls, waiting for the next unwitting guest like me. Reality felt thin, shaky, uncertain. I stumbled towards the door, hesitant but driven by the need to escape. As I stepped outside into the fresh night air, I thought I saw a shadow flicker at the corner of my eye. I turned, heart pounding, but there was nothing. A mere trick of the mind, but the question lingered. Had it really ended? I clutched my keys, heart heavy with unresolved questions. I glanced back at the motel, its neon sign flickering like it had before, and I realized I would never have the answers I needed. I drove away, thoughts racing, leaving the Red Lantern Motel behind me. I still think about it sometimes, the woman, the shadows, the whispers, like lingering echoes in my mind. Did I save anyone? Was there really anything there? As I merged into the highway, I kept my eyes straight ahead, the unknown stretching on forever. Sometimes, I even wonder if the whispers are still out there, searching for a way back, craving just one more soul. But mostly, I try not to think about it. I just keep moving.